Opening week continues and the Thunder got their season rolling as the new generation continued to put their stamp on the game.
That is the biggest one tonight.
For fan favourite and new star skipper Marcus Stoinis, it hasn't been the start he wanted as the defending champs won on the road.
And the title defence begins in great style.
The action never stops. This is The Surge. Yes, welcome to another edition of The Surge with Adam White and also Brad Hodge as BBL 14 really clicks into gear. Some amazing results, some amazing performances. We're not even through the first week. Brad Hodge, welcome.
Whitey, yes. Been a good week, hasn't it?
It has been. Are you just through the first sort of 4 or 5 games? I know it's probably too early for trends, but it does feel like it's really caught fire quite early, this competition this year.
Yeah, it's been really good. The cricket, look, to be honest, the cricket last year was really impressive, and I think it started again well this year. And that's probably a combination of a couple of things, but I think the biggest trend was moving from 14 games to 10 games, and it's really got that sort of notion that you've got to start well in the tournament. So there's that energy and that fire you can see from most teams that are trying to get those early wins. With some desperation, and you can see that there's some really strong cricket, some good competitive cricket.
Yeah, I agree. Beau Webster is our special guest. He's coming into the studio shortly. There's so much to talk to Beau about. Obviously, the Stars haven't started particularly well. We'll get to that shortly. But even just his own situation, he's obviously worried about the team in green, but he's also potentially worrying about a baggy green.
Green and gold, yeah. Look, it's an exciting time for him. He's had a great 12 months, hasn't he, with bat and ball, actually. He used to bowl off spin. Now he's bowling the medium paces. So, look, he's an exciting cricketer at the top of his game at the moment. So, look, fingers crossed he might get an opportunity to represent his country. That's the pinnacle for everyone. But I guess from our point of view, we want to see him do a little bit more with the green because the Stars need to get a roll on. But the tournament's been amazing so far. The broadcasting has been really well viewed from patrons back at home, really good numbers, and the crowds have been very supportive as well. It was huge over in Perth. I was up at Canberra and it was rocking when the Sydney Thunder got over the line there, and Sydney was also well supported. So, good start for everyone.
Absolutely. All right, let's get straight into the power play. Your Stars, the team that you predicted would win the competition.
Yeah.
Feeling was it might have been a bit of a biased call at the time, but we let it go. They're already 0-2. What has happened to your Stars?
Look, it's hard to put a handle on it. Maybe they're disrupted by not having their full quota of overseas players there. I'm not sure. The list is good enough. They've got a decent batting list. I just went over to Perth. A lot of people have had a history of getting over there and having their pants pulled down, so to speak, and that happened again to the Melbourne Stars. The Perth Scorchers was just way too good at home, and that's a tough first game. So there's no easy road there for the Melbourne Stars. And then last night, comprehensively beaten by, you'd have to say, a B-grade Brisbane Heat side. So you've got to give full credit to Johan Botha and the Brisbane Heat to get that job done. That's a remarkable win.
Yeah, we'll get to the Heat shortly because I agree with you. I mean, the dramas in the build-up to the game, for them to find a way to win away from home was quite incredible. But just with the Stars, this might sound a silly question, but when you play okay but still lose, which is what I think they did against Perth, and largely at times last night, they were okay, but still keep coming up short. Is that worse than having a horrendous performance that you can kind of just put to the side and say, there was just one of those days? It feels like they just come up short too often without playing horrendous cricket.
I guess
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. But they're the games you actually need to win. So it's those sort of tight ones where you look back at the end of the season and go, if we just had won those 2 games, then we would have been in the finals and fine. But I guess you got to ask the question, well, why can't they get over the line?
That's right.
Like what's that core root issue about why they haven't been able to be successful? Is it the senior players not standing up? Like there was a number of, again, 20s and 30s and starts. So there's that effort, but some not going on. And you probably got to get to the rationale behind that. Look, it's also awfully frustrating and pretty disappointing, actually. Look, it's only early in the season. Anything can happen. You can get a run on in T20 cricket and put 4 or 5 wins together, no problem. So I still believe that the Stars have got that capability of doing so. But once you lose one more, then you start to really doubt what you're actually doing. So that's why starting the season off really well. So there's a lot of positives to draw on that. There's a few things they could probably tinker with a little bit. But again, when's that happen?
Bowling, is that where the problem is? I mean, it felt last night that the score that they put up was okay without someone really dominating, but it felt like an understrength Heat batting lineup was always going to get that score after the first 3 or 4 overs. They had this inevitability about it.
Yeah, they needed 10 or 15 more, didn't they, with the bat? 160, it's a pass score, MCG. And if you do bat well, then you'll probably chase that down. So they probably needed sort of in that 170 bracket, which gives you a little bit more breathing space. But the bowling is definitely a bit of an issue. Again, you need wickets in the power play and struggled to do that. Got one early in Perth with Milne breaking through early. But again, looked like they just lacked a little bit of firepower. Thought Marcus Thornis bowled really well, actually, and I like him with a new ball, and he was aggressive in the middle, bowled at the stumps. But that wicket-taking ability in the middle to break that partnership looked a bit of an issue. And again, probably need to just play the ground a little bit better again, use that home ground advantage and test upstairs a few times and get the players to hit out to those square boundaries. It'll click. Just not quite for the moment.
All right, so you're not jumping off just
No,
yet.
I'm on Adam. I'm on it.
Okay, Beau Webster. We'll ask him what's wrong and what they can turn it around, because they'll have to turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So just on the Heat, so the 2 overseas players couldn't get up for the game. Munro was the big loss, not just one of their best players, but their captain, which meant Mitch Swepson had to lead the team. We talked last week about the fact that Johan Boda is a new coach. So do they play the same or they play differently, even though they're the champions? But they went out there and they just got the job done.
They did, didn't they? Oh, and that's where, if you're in the Stars management team, you're absolutely tearing your hair out, because that's a team you should turn over, particularly the MCG. And like we said, fair credit to the Brisbane Heat. And that's why they're champions, right? They've been resilient. They've got the job done. They've been in, last 2 finals for good reason. And
They've gone from, I'll say it, the laughing stock from 3 or 4 years ago where you couldn't trust them as far as you could throw them, really, based on how that they were playing, to this really reliable team with largely the same players.
Well, I've got a theory behind it, and I think it's a core group of Queensland cricketers that each player knows each other very well.
You've talked about this in the previous shows about that trust. When the pressure is on in a T20 game, you can turn to your teammate, you know what you're going to get. It's a big thing.
Yeah, well, we've seen that from the staff from the Perth Scorchers. We've seen it from the Sydney Sixers again, who probably should have lost that game, but if they hadn't had the experience and the knowledge that they all know what they're doing, they get the job done.
Yep.
So, look, those little things about having that homegrown talent that know each other quite personally as well, is critical. And I think that's a big thing that's been missing for the Stars for a long period of time. So it's an issue, something that needs to be looked at and probably rectified, not tomorrow, but over time, and maybe utilise some of that homegrown talent and just bind that a little bit together.
All right. So Heat win their first game with all those players missing. It sets up their season nicely, even though it is obviously very early. The Stars 0 and 2. Talk to us about Daniel Sams and what he did the other night, because he is one of the great enigmas of domestic cricket in this country. He can either be unbelievable or he can be the opposite to unbelievable. He's a really polarising cricketer with the way he goes about it with both bat and ball. But that batting the other night, he single-handedly won them the game. And you were there to see.
Yeah, look, I was. It was amazing, actually. And I was really pleased for him. The one thing I enjoyed about Daniel Sams' innings when he came to the crease with Chris Green is that I think in the past I'd seen him, if he needed 12 or 13 runs and over, maybe 14 runs and over, he'd try and hit the first ball for 6 and maybe lose his wicket. So he was 4, I think, off 5 balls. And it looked like it was getting out of hand. But someone with that ability does have, the belief and also the skill to be able to pull off miracles like he did. So hopefully he continues that trend and just gives himself a couple of balls to get the eye and get the feel of the pace of the wicket and do that more consistently because that's. I had a look at the strike rates of the Sydney Thunder lower order. Green 150, Daniel Sams 150 plus. There was also, I think, maybe Nathan McAndrew, maybe can even clock them. So they've got this real history of batting depth and skill. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So it was awesome. Super pleased for him. I really felt for Lloyd Pope and the Adelaide Strikers, but you know what? It was a bloody good spectacle, and that's T20 cricket. You know, like you can turn it in one over, and it was pretty special.
So I just want to ask you, well, I want to talk a bit about the strikers as well, but just with Sam. So whenever he walks out to bat, there's that feeling when you're sitting on the couch watching, or probably even if you're out in the field in the opposition going, I've got to be worried about this guy. Anything could happen here. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, but he can have those nights like he had last night. So he's always got that, puts that fear into the opposition. Is it the nature of the game and the nature of his plays that he can't do it more regularly? Or do you think what we saw the other night, and I'm not saying he's going to get 31 off and over every night, but that he should be able to lift the bar from a consistency point of view to win more games for his team?
It's super hard batting at 6, 7 and 8 to win games consistently because you're sort of determined by what's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard. You probably do it maybe once, twice in a season. I mean, that's probably why people are very critical of Tim David as well, right?
Well, he's the man I've got in my mind asking that question.
So he's not a banker. He'll win you 2, maybe 3 games just off his own bat that those games that probably should have gone. Like there's not many people who can get 14 over, 15 and over. Daniel Sams, Tim David, they can do it. Anyone else at the crease? No. So that's what you've got to give them the luxury to say, look, they're not the bankers. The bankers are the ones that come before them. They're the top order in the engine room. They've got to get it done so these guys can put the icing on the cake. So you've got to get them into a position where they believe and think that they can actually win the game. So most times when you walk out and you need 13 and over, you think, oh, I'm no chance here. So, and it might be that 1 in 10 matches where you can pull it out of your backside and you get it done. So that was the other night, Daniel Sams. So flip it around and go, you know, how easy is it to strike it over 200? It's not. So you've got to give those players that little bit of grace and luxury that they'll stuff it up from time to time because that high-risk game it's hard. And when you're trying to hit sixes every ball, sooner or later you're going to toe one and it's going to get caught along on. So, yeah, I'd love to see him do it a fraction more consistent. Because I think he's got it in him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think he has got it in him. And maybe this might be the belief, the turning point. So, hopefully it's a big confidence booster for him.
All right, you touched on Lloyd Pope. And I was listening to Ricky Ponting on the Channel 7 coverage of which you were part of the other night. Did the strikers pull the wrong rein by giving Pope the second last over and I guess hoping to get through it? Yeah. As opposed to potentially going to someone else to sort of make it impossible for Sams to do that in the last over as opposed to the second last over?
Well, the answer is yes. They probably just strategically got it wrong.
So it's easy to say that in reflection, but even at the time, the planning process, that's where they've potentially stuffed it up? Yeah,
but I mean, Matty Shorts, it's a feel thing as well, right? So we had a quick chat after the game and it's like when if you're a gambler, which I'm not, but you're sitting at a blackjack table and everyone thinks that, there's going to be a 10 coming out the next, so you double it up. Who's to know that there's a number of 10 or not? And that's the thing. The first ball, he could have smacked it up the chimney, he gets a wicket, and the game's finished. And it's such an interesting conundrum. I think it just needed to have. And the one thing, Matty Short was a bit short-stacked on medium paces the other night. So he actually did well to marshal his troops up to that point. But I think in that case, when you've got a luxury of runs, give it to one of your bowlers and then you can pretty much dust it off in the 19th over. So that's the theory behind it. That doesn't always work either. So who's to say that your best bowler doesn't go for 20 runs and then...
And he'd been good for the 3 overs previously as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is that could hurt his confidence and the Adelaide Strikers' confidence a lot about the side that they pick going into the next few games. So it's a real hammer blow. But yeah, I have to support Ricky on that. We were probably thinking the same thing. And then, you can nearly bring on anyone on the last over, Matt Short himself even, or Baisley or whoever it is to defend, 35. And if you get that done, well, so be it. But that's the conundrum of T20 cricket. You're always thinking on the run. You're thinking, well, he probably thought he was going to get him out, and then the game's finished. But look, it's lessons learned, and you make that adjustment next time.
I hope he fights back from that, Lloyd Pope, because I think he's great for the competition. He's got a bit of a point of difference, and I think the strikers do as well with this real, strength of spin. Or that's, a lot of their tactics are around their spin.
It is, but maybe teams are now a little bit aware of that now.
Yeah.
So it just looked like they've one medium pacer short the other night. I think James Baisley will come under a lot of extreme pressure under his bowling. With that lineup, that's what I'd be doing personally. I'd be going as hard as humanly possible against him every over that he bowls. So again, you just got to structure that up and work through that. So it just it's spin works Adelaide Oval, but not too many. But I think Finn Allen, unfortunately, that's a hammer blow.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
tough
big loss.
hammer blow,
Yeah.
that, because his bowling was nice. He gives him a whack,
Yeah.
and good in the field too. So
Bit of an X factor. All right, so that's a bit of a look at some of the issues and some of the big stories through our power play on the Surge. Don't forget about the BKT Big Bash tipping. Join today for a chance to win $1,000 each week. And then, of course, don't forget the overall prize of $10,000. The Big Bash app is the #1 sports app in Australia right now, so download it to get involved today with not just the tipping, but also all the news and everything that is Big Bash. This is The Surge. Beau Webster, Melbourne Stars star, with us in the studio right after this. Welcome back to The Surge with Adam White, Brad Hodge, and also Beau Webster, who's come into the studio the morning after the loss to the Heat last night. Beau, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
What's it like the morning after a loss? You've got 10 games across a pretty short period of time. That sort of dwelling on performance or moving on to the next game. What's that balance like?
Yeah, it's another short turnaround for us to heading off to Adelaide today and play tomorrow night. But it's certainly not dwelling. But we need to take some learnings, I think, definitely. And we had a chat post game. Stoyne sat up the front and gave his piece, and as did Peter Moores. And we know we're not far off it. We've got a good team, and we haven't started the tournament how we liked, but there's still 8 games to go. And we do play well at Adelaide, where we are tomorrow night, and hopefully that can kickstart us and get us on a roll like we did last season, where we won 3 or 4 on the trot and threatened to make finals.
It's a new experience for Marcus as captain. What was he like last night after the game, addressing the players, having lost your first 2 games?
Yeah, he has taken over from Glenn, and he's taken everything in his stride. He's very integrated. He's very positive about the group, and he's playing well as well. We saw him bat in Perth brilliantly, bowled and batted beautifully again last night. He was already a leader at the Stars, and even if he didn't have the captain title, he's still a big leader and a big part of the Stars. And since the start, so he's been excellent. And to step up and be a leader, I think the boys are really excited about a fresh leadership change, and what it'll do to Maxi too. Hopefully, free him up, and when he comes back in the side tomorrow, and he can get his season rolling.
Hodgie's got a lot of questions for you because he's tipped you to win the premiership, so he's a little bit nervous. So I've got one more, and then you go for it, Hodgie. Just that 0-2 start, based on what's happened over the last couple of years, is it? I'm not saying there's sirens going off and red lights flashing, but how much of it is we've got to get our act together real quick? You've got, as you said, the Strikers tomorrow night. Then you've got Boxing Day up in Sydney against the Sixers. Kind of feels like it's now or never.
Yeah, it is funny when you say now or never, and it feels like we've only been here for a couple of days playing the tournament. But you're right, it's a 10-game tournament, and some very good teams are kicking about, and we do need to get rolling. It's early season wins are key, and we haven't had those in the first 2 games. And hopefully, like I said, we can get on a roll, because I think when we do, we do play quite consistently. Once we do get that win and get the ball rolling, it just seems we've had a bit of trouble starting off the season in recent years. But no, everyone's really positive still, the coaching staff, the players. Everyone knows we're not far off, and like I said, hopefully Adelaide can be the start of that.
I love that positivity. I don't see it on his face when he walked in here. He said, "What's it like? What does it feel like when you lose a game of cricket the day before? It's awful, isn't it? It's just you feel horrible."
Yeah, you're definitely not as up and about as if you've had a good win, but your attention quickly turns to the next game in this format where there are games thick and fast throughout the Christmas period.
I want to ask you about Marcus Stoinis. You mentioned it. So I've seen his leadership in and around the Australian dressing room, and I think he's an exceptional leader. And he's evolved and changed over a period of time. What's his different style compared to Maxi's? That what's the difference that you've seen so far?
It's hard to say. He's only obviously been in the job a week since I got here into Melbourne, but he's one of those guys that just commands a presence, Stoin. He's very, leads with his actions, and you're kind of one of those guys you just follow. And we've seen what he can do in all facets of the game. And when he bats like he does, and when he bowls and he's animated and right into the contest, it gets everyone up with him. And he's an exceptional leader, like you said. He's very personable. He's very knowledgeable about the game. I think he's a great tactician, and he's going to offer a lot with his captaincy this year and the next few years as well. So having him in that role is nice and refreshing. I think Maxi's done a great job and a hell of a player, and for him to step aside and realise that we might need something fresh there's big of him as well. And Stoin's definitely the right man to do it. And he's although the win-loss tally doesn't look like it, he's definitely the right man for the job at the moment.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I want to ask you, are you fighting him for the new ball? Like, is that I'd lie, you're walking up to him and say, mate, I've got a good record of over the last year. Should you take that new ball? Is that an option for the Melbourne Stars?
I'll definitely put my hand up to bowl with the new ball while it is doing something. But we've got so many options there with the new ball throughout the middle and at the death. It feels like it is a bit of a juggling act for the captain, and I think he's one that's got great knowledge around the game of T20 cricket, and he reads the game really well, and uses bowlers in the right spots, and it can be a bit of a coin flip sometimes whether you go to a leggy and try and buy a wicket, or you stick to your quicks. And with I think all the all-rounders in our team, they're only going to get more when Maxi comes back in, and he's going to have more options. But I think it's one of those things where you can have a good game one night with the bowling selections and it comes off, and then you do the same thing the next game, and you never know. It's just the T20 game of cricket, but everyone's really confident in Stoin and backing his captaincy in.
So Maxi will definitely play against the strikers?
Yeah, he's on the plane. He's on the plane, so I assume he's playing. And obviously Ben Duckett comes in for Joe Clark as well.
So how close was he from playing last night? And it's an obvious question about how much you're missing him. But how close was he, and how frustrated has it been that he hasn't been there from the start?
Yeah, obviously you want him playing. He's one of the world's best, and as we mentioned before, early season wins are key in this competition. So we would have loved to have him in Perth and out there last night, but I think the safe play and to make sure he does get through the rest of the tournament and hopefully finals is that he probably need an extra couple of days rest. And he's chomping to come back in. He's you see him on the sidelines carrying on at a shot or a field placing or whatever. So he's obviously still heavily invested, and he can't wait to get out there.
How much are they missing him, Hodgie?
Well, it's huge, but I think Ben Duckett's actually been the big loss so far. If he was there just for the start of the tournament, the way he plays and his ability at the top, then I think that just would have stabilised things a little bit. Another left-hander in the lineup, which has been a little bit of an Achilles heel for the Melbourne Stars in their list over a period of time. But Maxi's just that player that, like what happened to Daniel Sams the other night, he can just turn a game in 3 or 4 minutes. And it's unstoppable when it happens. So he's a very rare player that's got that ability to do so. The other thing he does well is he nullifies every spin bowler in the competition. So as a captain, you're just reluctant to bowl any form of spin. So then it changes your strategy and the way you go about planning, your 20 overs. So that's what Maxi brings to the table. And he's a gun fielder. So you mentioned your fielding. That's a big thing. That's one thing that he always commanded as a leader, that fielding was to a standard which, he believed that it should be at. So that's a critical point as well.
So question to both of you. I'll start with Hodgie with all the experience you've had of playing in the BBL. When you've got players that are hovering, so they're going to come into the squad based on whether they're coming back from injury, coming from an international tour, You know you're going to be better when they're there, but they're not there at the moment. How difficult is that in managing expectations, managing performance, and concentrating on the team you've got in, not the team you might have in the next game?
Well, it's a nightmare. It's really hard, really difficult to manage, something which has probably been frustrating for a number of teams. That's why the Sydney Sixers do it well. They choose James Vince every time, and he performs for them every time. He's there 10 games of the year, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. But, however, you've got to find a way to win because, like last night, Brisbane Heat went in with the Brisbane Heat's third or fourth 11 and managed to get the job done. So you've got to manage your way through that. The change is important. And T20 cricket is about flexibility. So you've got to be able to manage to step up in that place. And then you've got to look at the individual. So it comes down to those that have to step up in the absence of those big players. It happens in every form of cricket. Somewhere along the line, you're going to lose someone. So Josh Hazlewood goes out. You know what? Boland comes in and let's see if he steps up to the plate. I'm sure he will. But you have those moments in sport that someone just needs to come in, grab the bull by the horns and go, let's go.
What's it like, Beau, when you know that you've got these players to come in, but they're not playing at the moment? Do you address it at all? Is it in the back of people's minds? What's it like in and around the group?
No, I think Hodge's spot on there. You obviously want those guys playing every game possible, but the reality is you're not going to have it. There's injuries, there's international tours, like you said. I think you try and manage your list as good as you can to have that availability is a big one. We always hear that word at draft night, availability everywhere. So it is a massive part of building a list. And injuries are unforeseen, and when they happen, like Hodge said, you have to deal with it, and someone has to step up. And we still went into that game last night, with a very strong 11. A lot of cricket played between us, a lot of experience, and unfortunately we couldn't get the job done against a weaker Brisbane Heat side. So that one definitely does hurt. When you look at the two teams on paper, we thought we should have got the chocolates and we didn't. And that can happen in T20 cricket. But there's only so many times you can say, we got a good ball or we bowled a bad spell. It'll be okay. You need to step up and start performing consistently. And we haven't done that at the start of the season, but I don't think we're too far off.
The miracle of Hilton Cartwright playing last night after what we saw in Perth, maybe a bit strong to say miracle, but it was from what we saw in Perth to see him in a pretty bad way and heading off to hospital, but then being able to play the other night. Take us through what that was like as a teammate of his, that sort of dramatic 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, first and foremost, I was on the other side of the ground like a lot of the boys were. And when he stayed down after one of his sort of trademark dives on the boundary line there, he's been doing that for years and, saved countless runs for the Stars over the years doing that. And he didn't get up. So there's always a bit of worry there. And, when the stretcher comes out, it's never nice. You're sort of in the dark a little bit of what he's done, whether he smacked his head or a bit of neck issue or whatever it was. But luckily for Hilton, he's got that Rhodesian blood in him, and it's just healed miraculously over a 24-hour period, and he's back out there chasing the ball like he does every time. So everyone was stoked to hear that he got on the plane on a different flight, albeit, but on the same day as us, and got back to Melbourne and prepped really well for the game last night.
Hodgie, does he hit the ball harder than anyone?
Hilton Cartwright?
Yeah. This man with us, Big Beau's, it would be close to the podium as well, but just the way he hits the ball.
I think he's got the biggest six in BBL. Well, but not recorded to the actual length that it should have been. That's a contentious one, isn't it? So there's probably 3 hits. There's probably 4 or 5, actually. There's the 2 at the Gabba from Dan Christian. It was, I'm not sure.
Chris Lynn was the other one.
Chris Lynn hit Sean Tate. And there's one at Marvel that Finchy hit, which I think would have landed in Geelong if there hadn't been a roof there.
He hit a couple of big ones. There's one at the Adelaide Oval. There's a couple at Marvel.
I have said that to Beau that when you can get your own seat, you can talk about how big your sixes are. So, but I think it was a good strategy from the Melbourne Cricket Club not to get the exact tape measure out, and let's keep things in Victoria for the Victorians, eh? But I love the way he's playing cricket at the moment, and probably an opportunity to get him up the order. When you got someone in real form, might be something that Melbourne Stars look at and get him up the order. When you come off a really good Sheffield Shield season and a good start to the summer, you really want to use that ability and cash it in. So particularly him, who's and he's probably in a tricky mindset at the moment with the Australian stuff. But then with that, it creates a huge level of confidence because you believe that you're sort of at this level that's at the next level, the international level. You haven't played yet, but getting there. So you can bring that sort of encouragement and courage back to the domestic level. And I think that's something the Stars maybe just need to look at if they can adjust that in the next couple of games.
Well, let's ask him. What's it done for your confidence to be in the Test squad off the back of an incredible run at Sheffield Shield level now for, I'd say, a couple of years?
Yeah, firstly, it's been a great couple of weeks just to be in and around the Test setup and see how they go about it and, watch the big boys operate and how they're going in what is a massive series as well. A Border Gavaskar Trophy is one of the biggest ones and, it's deadlocked at 1-1 at the moment, so there's plenty of pressure around and the boys are playing really well. So it's great just to be around that setup and it is a bit of a tricky one. I haven't really had it throughout my career where I'm sort of prepping for a Test match in case something was to happen and I get the nod, but then on the next minute when the toss goes up, I'm on a plane to Perth and playing over there. So it is a little bit tricky to manage, but I think it just comes with the territory these days of cricket. You play so much and you play 3 formats. It's just part of the job. So there's no excuses, and I feel like I'm in really good form still with the white ball as I am with the red ball, and a lot of the skills are pretty transferable, luckily. So. No, I'm just going about it and taking each day as it comes. I'll play this next game in Adelaide and then join back up with the Test squad and prep there as if I'm going to play. And once the coin goes up, if I'm in the 11, I'll be over the moon. And if it's not, I'll be back in Stars colours, I think, and trying to get our season going.
So what's that like? Almost a firefighter that you could have to go at any moment and then represent your country as opposed to putting out a fire. Do you get jumpy every time the phone rings? Are you watching for news reports just in case Mitch Marsh pulls up sore at training? Like what's it like? Or even when you're at training, keeping an eye on to make sure that he's bowling. I can't imagine how difficult that would be with all the things that are swirling around in your mind.
Yeah, there is a level of that. I certainly get messages from mates and things like that saying, "Oh, you should be in," or why aren't you playing, or all this thing. And it's just, like I said, it's just part of the job. I think you learn to block out that noise and try and focus because, you focus on something too far away, you're going to stumble what's in front of you. And what's in front of me right now is the BBL and, Adelaide tomorrow night. And once that's done, I'll switch back into red ball mode and do what I have done the last 2 or 3 years and keep the prep exactly the same and prep as if I'm going to play. And like I said, if I do, it'd be great. And if not, I'd love to come back to the Stars and get our season going, and try and get us into the finals. But it is tricky and something I have to, learn to deal with. But it's a good problem to have, I suppose, being around the Test setup and then playing Big Bash. It's exciting times, definitely for me.
Now, Hodge, have you got any advice for Beau? Because you were next in line for about 15 years for playing Test cricket. You had a lot of waiting by the phone. Yep. Any advice?
None at all. The problem he's got is that the Australian cricket team at the moment, they're all great guys. So you can't afford anyone any bad luck. So particularly Mitch Marsh, right, who's one of the best dudes going around where, often in sport, that's how you get your opportunity. Like it's someone else's bad luck through an injury or something like that where you can get an opportunity. So, I don't wish anyone any ill opportunity, any ill fortune, but that's generally how it happens. But yeah, that's the problem with Beau because he's probably secretly thinking, not sure if he can get through and I'd love an opportunity. But then again, as I said, they're all great guys and great personalities. So you cannot wish him any ill fortune. Only glory and luck, particularly for the next Test matches. What you can do, and it's the same message to every cricketer, and it's a little bit boring because it doesn't hit the mark, but it's just keep doing what you're doing. And it's probably not what you want to hear, but that's the reality is that's what you got to do.
I remember there was a story with you, and you can tell this story, I'm sure, when Luke Pommersback had to fill in for you because you did your back tying up your pants or something like that in a one-day game, and Luke was out in the crowd having a beer with his girlfriend watching the game.
Yeah, he'd come to the cricket to have a few cans with his mates, and I think he's onto about his second or third by the time the toss had gone up. And this was a T20 match for Australia, and I just went to, after the warm-up, put my pants on, so I reached down, went to get him over my feet, and my back just seized up, and I just hit the floor. And I remember, I think it was Simo, and even Merv Hughes, the selector, they were sort of laughing their ass off. And then I didn't get up and I couldn't move. I was like a surfboard. My back was just cactus. And I'm not even sure why. And then, and we didn't have a spare bat actually in the list. Might have been a bowler, and then the side, like we were just short stacked of an extra batter. So then Luke actually walked past the dressing room at the Wacker, and someone said, "Oh, what about Thomas back? He's pretty good. He'll do." So they wheeled him in, grabbed my kit, whacked the number 17 on him, and you got 17 or 18, which was pretty good, which is probably more than I would have got anyway.
2 cans deep
yeah,
as well.
So he did well. Maybe that's the recipe for success when you're represent your country. But no, he did well. That was a weird time. I think it was. At the time, I didn't know it, but I thought that was going to be my last opportunity for Australia. So, yeah, I was pretty devastated. Fortunately for me, I got picked for Australia when I was a bit older to play in Bangladesh in a T20 tournament. But that was sort of like, I thought, oh, well, that's it. That's the end. Anyway, good luck for Luke. He was on fire at the time anyway. So he probably should have been picked ahead of me anyway.
So that is an incredible story. So just one final one on you. Where has this not improvement come from? Well, probably improvement, or is it more recognition of what you've done for a long period of time? Because you are doing it in domestic cricket, red ball, white ball. You do it for the Melbourne Stars regularly. Has there been something, a switch that has been flicked, or?
I'm not. I don't have an answer straight away. What I can put it down to, but I think if I look at over the last couple of years, and I've said this a few times, I've always had a good innings in me right throughout my career. It was just that consistency I was lacking. I'd always have I'd get 100 or 200s a year, but in between that, it would be few and far between. So I think a little bit of preparation stuff and a bit of role clarity, especially where I bat down in Tassie, and that sort of role clarity of what I'm expected to do, and I sort of play a lot of cricket now where I know each situation and different conditions and things like that. So that's definitely contributed to it. But I think also another one is bowling as well. Like just the transition into medium pace feels like I'm a bit more a leader in the group, I suppose, and I try to drag a lot of the Tassie boys with me with the ball if I am missing out with the bat. And, it's the old all-rounder adage where you sort of say, if you miss out with the bat, you've got a chance to impact with the ball, and that's, that couldn't have ring true with me. I feel like if I am in good form with the bat, I'm in good form with the ball, and they do go hand in hand a lot of the times, but you do have some of those days where you get a good ball and you're filthy with yourself, but you can go out and take a few wickets and help that way. So I think the role clarity and then the bowling has definitely helped me be a more consistent overall cricketer, and I've nailed down a prep routine now where I know what I need to do to get myself ready. I'm not a massive trainer. I like to play games of cricket, hence why I keep going back to the UK in the winter and trying to play as much county cricket as I can over there and T20 cricket. And I've always been a learner on the job as opposed to having long periods of time in the nets and things like that. So definitely that also has helped, I think, and I'll continue to do that now. I'll be trying to go back and every winter I can and play as much as I can, because I think it's great for my game just to be out in the park and competing.
There's a really interesting point to that. One, he's growing because he's getting older, and he knows. He talked about every situation that he's faced now, he's probably come across, so you can navigate your way through it. As a young player, you sort of can be a little bit of rabbit in the headlights thinking, what's going on here? Playing in England, you come back and you're a 50-game better player. So if you think of all sports about, you only get an opportunity to bat 20 or 30 times here in Australia, over the summer. You go over there and you mark centre another 50 times, then you're an 80-game player in a year. It's a huge benefit, and it worked for a number of players playing in the 90s and 2000s, going over and playing county cricket. And it doesn't matter whether it's county cricket or a low-grade league cricket. They'll tell you whether you're good or crap. That's one thing you'll do. And you quickly work out that, hey, I'm here to make runs and I've got to find out a way to do it. And every week's different. It can be wet, it can be seaming, it can be overcast, it can be sunny. But every time you mark centre, you're facing a different challenge, and I think that's what Beau's done really well the last couple of years.
And probably the other thing too is it's good to see someone over 200 centimetres bowling fast rather than bowling off spin. It's
good, isn't it?
A bit of a waste, isn't it?
Oh, it's good. It's actually really positive to see him sling a few down there for sure.
Have you asked a lot of questions in the test squad of the players that you're arguably meeting for the first time or that you don't know particularly well, or do you find yourself just sitting back and absorbing and watching a lot that goes on?
I think first couple of days I definitely it was probably the first time I've been nervous around cricket in a long time. I've been playing a lot of first-class cricket for Tassie and in the Big Bash, and those nerves are still there a little bit before you go on a bat, as every batter gets, or before you're fielding in front of a big crowd. But I suppose just walking into a dressing room with, probably some of Australia's greatest ever test players. And I remember one of the first training sessions we had there, Paddy addressed the group after the Perth loss and just said, we are number one ranked team in the world, and some of these guys are going down as the best test cricketers ever to play the game for Australia, and that sort of hit home a little bit. I sort of felt like I was still one of the kids running the drinks that they get into from the local thing there. But then you sort of look back, and I was in that squad of 14, and it hits pretty hard that they're a high performing team globally, and it does make it a bit surreal when he says things like that. But I've definitely, in the last couple of days of being in there up in Brisbane, I played a lot of golf with these boys, and it's no better place to have a chat about cricket or life or anything with those. So I played a lot with Smithy and Marn and those boys and got their side of things, and just having a chat, on the golf course is hugely valuable, just to pick their brain a little bit and just see where they're at and how they're going and things like that as well is hugely valuable for me.
And then from a Stars point of view, you've got Curran into the team this year, who's incredibly experienced in short form cricket. We mentioned before about Duckett coming in as a test opener, and someone who's also played in the BBL. Again, is that someone that you're asking a lot of questions of, even though you're one of the most experienced players in the Stars team, just to take that as an opportunity to become better?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still asking questions to Maxi and Stoyan, about batting in certain situations in the middle order and what they're thinking in certain circumstances. And TC's no different. He's been doing T20 franchise cricket for a long time. He's played for his country. He's hugely experienced, and anything I can get off him, particularly with the ball throughout the middle and his death stuff is massively valuable. I'm always trying to learn. I feel like I've always been a learner, and the best way to do that is by chatting to people. And I've got no issue going to ask people what they're thinking in this situation, or what other what other things they can do better, and how do they go about that sort of stuff. So I'm always trying to learn, and it's part of the reason why I try and play as much cricket as I can, is to play with those sort of guys like TC and Duckett and get their point of view on how they go about it.
So having had Beau in here for the last 20 minutes or so, you're feeling comfortable that the Stars are still the team you want to be on, Hodgie, after making the big call at the start of the tournament?
No, not as confident as yet, but still very hopeful and buoyant. I think they've got the recipe. I really do believe that they've got a strong unit and a core group of players who can get the job done. And I think it was like before the start of the show, we mentioned that it's just those players that have been around for a while that probably just need to step up and, put some match-winning performances together, like, Matt Short or whatever. There's someone that's done that for the Adelaide Strikers. Just needs to be done at the Melbourne Stars. So we're just seeing little bits and pieces of glimmer of good stuff, 20s and 30s, but we need to see that, a couple of the 147s that Marcus Thorne has peeled off, or something special, to lift the hopes of the team. So it'll happen. They got the ability. They got the cattle. So I'm a bit devastated of the loss yesterday, particularly at the MCG, because we mentioned how the Stars need to make that a bit more of a home fortress, and that's not the start that any sort of team would have wanted. But it's a difficult ground to master, the MCG. It really is. It's a big ground. The wicket can be challenging from time to time. So I want that. Well, I want as a supporter, but also. For the Stars, for them to make that a really tough venue for everyone else. Like when you would have got on the plane to go over to Perth, and mentally you're just like, this is going to be hard. Like, this is going to be a challenge. And I think that needs to happen at the MCG to become that cauldron that the Melbourne Stars just make it a fortress.
We sort of try and do sort of mini masterclasses in here as part of the Surge, Beau. One I wanted to ask you about is your ability to hit the ball down the ground when the ball is quite short. We saw it a couple of times last night, almost like baseball shots down the ground. How much
Yeah.
do you practice that? Because I would imagine that's quite a difficult shot rather than to hit the ball square when it's short, to hit the ball back towards the side screen. Something you do extremely well, as Marcus Stoinis does too.
At the MCG, how it is the shortest way home, and you see those short boundaries straight and the massive ones square, you kind of have to figure out a way how to get there, because if you just keep hitting it out to the sweepers, it's not going to cut the mustard when you're trying to get 180 plus. And Stoins, he's great at it. Maxwell's another one. They do it completely differently, I think, whereas Stoins just muscles the ball over there and Maxie uses his unbelievable wrist to get the ball down the ground. But it's definitely a shot you need to have, I think, and coupling that with a lap as well at the MCG and at Optus is two very, very important shots. If you're getting hurt straight at these grounds, it's every bowling coach should think MCG is the easiest place to bowl. You run in and bash the wicket and they've got to hit it 90 metres to clear the rope. But the guys these days can lap and like we saw last night, a few of us can hit the ball down the ground off the back foot, it brings in another dimension. It's certainly easier for someone like me, who's a bit taller, and it takes a bit more of a shorter ball to get it up around my nose, as opposed to Harpsy, I suppose. He goes the other way. He's a fantastic ramper, and he uses the dimensions that way. So there's different ways to go about it, but it is
How do you practice it? Because, I can't imagine you'd want to practice in the nets because you might kill the bowlers potentially. So how do you practice a shot that is so difficult to execute?
I think it's just that. I think it's just getting balls. You're going to get majority of the balls, around your waist and higher at the MCG. So instead of just, as you would in a red ball game, tucking them off the hip for one or cutting them for one to the sweeper out there, you find a way to be able to create a bat swing that can get the ball back over the bowler's head from back of a length. And I suppose when you do a bit of research, as we all do now on opposition bowlers, we know someone like Paul Walters is going to go into the wicket and 80% of the time it's going to be off pace. And if you can get the ball back down the ground off that delivery, it throws his plans into disarray a little bit. And I thought we played him very well. He had a great big bash last year with his left arm around the wicket and change of pace, and all he wants is blokes just to flat bat him out to deep square and deep mid wicket with the fields he's got and take the singles, and then they panic and try and do something else. But I think we got him a few times straight off the back foot, which is something you definitely need to do. You either need to go that way or over the keeper if you want to keep hitting boundaries, because like Hodge said, it's a unique ground where it's a bit daunting at times when you sort of walk out there and you look around and your hitting zones are 90 metres and the fielder's another 20 metres in from that. So, I think the boys will enjoy Adelaide tomorrow night, where those square boundaries are very small and, it's a different game plan altogether. But it's one of those grounds, MCG, where we do want to make it an absolute fortress, and I just think we haven't quite nailed a game plan down. And, I think certain cricketers that do really well with the bat there aren't necessarily the big powerful blokes. Your Jordan Silks and James Vince's record there would be, I think, phenomenal. Great averages with a high strike rate, and I think a low number of sixes. They sort of death by 1,000 cuts, those sort of players, which something we could probably learn from. Nick Larkin did it quite well at Stars as well. He cut the ball, he hit the ball along the ground and had a lot of success there as well. So definitely something we need to look at. I don't think he's hit too many sixes there, Larko, but he had some
I'm not
good knocks
sure
there.
how successful Nick Larkin was in the Melbourne Stars colours.
How would you go hitting the reverse ramp?
He was
You're
just
you're
one-
a traditional
one that came to
cricket
mind.
shots.
One of the things I'm picking up there, Adam, is this great strategic management from Beau to be able to recognise that that's the length that the bowlers are going to be bowling,
it's good,
and then challenge yourself to actually be better. So that's awesome, really cool strategic batting. He's obviously thought about it a long time, and he reminds me a little bit, those shots that he's playing is of a past Melbourne Stars player named Kevin Peterson, who had the ability to hit the ball on top of the bounce back down the ground. And that was probably his skill of targeting that short boundary as well. But that's it's something which you develop as a player, and it's going to be a huge weapon for Beau. It's really important. The laps, you've got to be super courageous to do that, and you've got to take your hat off to all these young players that just do it at will, but they practice and practice and practice. So it's not it's just pure skill that they're able to deliver. I wouldn't do it. No way, no chance.
Beau did one last night. You almost have your eyes closed.
Yeah.
You just don't know how it's
He's 6'4". He can't hardly even get down there. So
Yeah,
it's
halves makes it look a lot easier than I do. I think I'm looking a bit awkward trying to get down there, but I think it is one of those shots you play. If you as a bowler, you bowl into a guy that laps, you always have to have your fine leg back, and you have to have him quite fine, which effectively takes out one fielder. So they've only got 8 fielders to deal with, and it opens up, a mid-wicket gap or a mid-off gap where they have to be in the ring. So it's a massive shot, and I think a lot of players play it now, and the ones that do it really well are extremely hard to bowl to. You, Josh Inglis's, Ashton Turner's, these sort of blokes who do it really well at Optus and get 6 for it sometimes with the dimensions of the ground. It can be a nightmare for the captain and bowler.
All right, before we go, just a reminder about the Supercoach for those that are playing the Supercoach, like my kids are doing at home. Some of the stars at the moment, sort of the regulars, Jai Richardson and Jason Berendorf from a bowling point of view. But from a batting point of view, 2 youngsters. So it's a chance to talk about 2 guys that you want them in your Supercoach team. You're certainly not having to pay too much for them. And that is Cooper Connolly and also Sam Constas. So we'll start with Sam Constas, and I'll ask you, Beau, about Sam as well. Now, he's been around for a little while, and he's done very well in the Shield season to start with. But a lot of people saw him for the first time the other night, and he put on a show in front of you up at Manuka.
Including myself. First time I've seen him live. Seeing snippets of, the Australia A game and all that sort of stuff where he's doing the laps and playing the shots and a few of the Shield stuff, but not actually live at the ground. It was impressive. Like, there's a lot to like about that kid, and what can you say? The talent is extraordinary. The belief is clearly there, and I thought it was a great partnership for him and Warner to walk out and open the batting for the Sydney Thunder, who have struggled in that department for a long period of time. So that was a great start. First ball went for 4, and then smashed the fastest 50 for the team. So look, it was pretty impressive, and I'm sure everyone around the country now understands what that hype is all about. So yeah, he's a talent, and will probably find himself in the Australian colours, not too far away. I mean, a couple of ducks he got and it put him back in the pack, but that can happen to anyone.
What do you see in Sam Constas, Beau?
Yeah, he was hugely impressive. I was a bit the same as Hodge. We played him last year in a Shield game, and he didn't get too many. And then he obviously started off with those twin tons, and was picked in the Australia A and played alongside him. Batted with him a long time at the MCG actually, and he was hugely impressive. I'll echo those words. The belief's definitely there for a youngster, 19-year-old. He was certainly unfazed by anything that came his way, whether it be bumper plan or good spin or open the batting in a big bash game. It just feels like anything that comes in his path at the moment. He's super confident, and he's obviously batting really well. And I think one of those reasons is why not a lot of people have done some research on him. Sort of that first year he's burst onto the scene, and he's had a lot of success opening the batting, and I'm sure in the next couple of years he'll get challenged again when people do their research and watch the footage and see where they can and cannot bowl to him. But at the moment he's all steam ahead, and like I said, anything he's sort of wheeling out to play at the moment, he's dominating, and hats off to him as a 19-year-old. He looks pretty well composed, uncomplicated technique, and I think I'm with Hodge. He's going to play a hell of a lot of first-class cricket, and he'll find himself in Australian colours as well if he keeps going the way he's going.
Yeah, it's just that mental pressure. Like, clearly now there's a huge spotlight on him, right? So it's then when the expectation that we all want this high-grade athlete to make 1,000 Shield runs and smack them all around the BBL, and the challenge will come for him is then what happens if that doesn't happen? Like, what happens if you have a 3 or 4 runs of poor Shield cricket, or 4 or 5 runs of dismissals in BBL where you try and smack him and it goes straight up in the air, which can happen any time. They're the sort of challenges that he'll face, because unfortunately in our game, people love to critique, right? They'll pick apart anything that the armchair critic sits there and picks apart what you do well and what you do poorly, and we can't escape it. So those little things, hopefully he can manage, and if he's good enough, you know what, he won't have those runs of 3 or 4 poor games. He'll dominate and do it as the best players do.
And just finally on Cooper Connolly, that square drive 6 he hit, the bat speed that he can generate. I mean, that never happened back when you played.
No, look, and I was here. I promoted the Melbourne Stars to win the flag. We'll see if that one's right. And I said, pick Cooper Connolly in your Supercoach, and he come good for me. So
wickets and runs.
Wickets and runs, and I think that's the abilities. His left arm orthodox is actually quite impressive, and his batting is actually very impressive. So his bat speed, his ability, again, young kid. So goes out there with this belief that he can get it done, and so far so good. But yeah, again, that home ground advantage, he just played the ball really well. So, let's see.
Bo, thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate it, particularly off a disappointing loss last night. Good luck for the Melbourne Stars, but also good luck. Who knows, you might get that tap on the shoulder to play potentially as early as Boxing Day, but who knows? You're in the mix, and that's an exciting time for your life, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good couple of weeks, regardless whether it be in the test setup or back trying to get the Stars season going. So cheers. Thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. Hodgie, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, there's no better preparation, Bo, than sitting in row 27C with your 6'4" body jammed into an economy seat. So good luck with the show. I hope it goes well.
That's it for the Surge for this week, but make sure you continue watching or listening to us throughout the course of BBL 14 all the way to the end. And, of course, you can catch up with all the news on the Big Bash app. Make sure you get it. We'll catch you again next time.